All right, welcome to the panel on live events, where we are going to give a brief history of what happened, get some crowd feedback, probably talk some smack, and answer questions about the Sancha live events that took place over most of last year and part of this year. And if we're lucky, and if you ask the right questions, maybe we can answer some topics about the future evolution of live events, what the next storylines will be, what the possible conclusion or resolution of the Sancha live events would be. How many people here were involved in some way in the Sancha live events?
Wow, good number.
Okay, so there's a lot of smack talk I can do. How many of you got like lost a really expensive ship or got potted in the live events? Really, one dude? Seriously? You were the guy in the Tengu, weren't you? I knew it was you. So a brief history, and just interrupt me whenever you like.
Yep. I'm just enjoying throwing you under the bus right now.
This is like the nightly news. Like, he's the sports guy who patiently waits for his turn, and I'm like the ditz who does the weather and just likes talking and seeing herself on TV.
He's role-playing a girl right now. Just saying. So yeah, how live events began.
How live events began. Once upon a time, last year, marketing came to us and said, you know, as we look at the curve for subscriber trends for EVE Online, we always enter this lull between expansions where everybody's all psyched for an expansion, and it comes out, it's got a bunch of new features, we think it's going to keep you occupied for a long time. You guys are all really smart and impatient assholes, so you figure it all out mathematically in like a week and a half. It's up on somebody's blog, and people start, you know, wandering off from EVE Online. So they said, all right, well, we want something like really exciting, really topical, really engaging to keep players interested during these expansions. And someone had the suggestion of, hey, why don't we do some of the live events? You know, why don't we get some devs on there, role play with the players, mix things up, start some storylines, that sort of thing.
Because interestingly enough, a lot of the guys who work in the Atlanta office actually have a lot of experience running live events, not in EVE, but in previous games, going all the way back to Ultima Online and that sort of stuff. So they definitely wanted to see come back as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the chefs at Atlanta wanted to see live events come back.
Yeah,
so
and we'll get back to the chefs. Keep that in mind. The people who cook our delicious food in Atlanta may have destroyed you in live events.
Or that guy, really.
Or just that guy who lost the Tengu. No, it's you. I'm going to look up the logs, buddy. I know your name. So they came to Team Kami Pinkos, which is the content team in Atlanta, and usually we just write stories and make missions and that sort of thing. And they said, well, live events, you know, that's what we want. You guys go ahead and do it. And we threw around some ideas of really complicated storylines and things where people would pick sides and all this would happen. And then we were like, you know, we've got to get these things out the door. Let's just spawn a bunch of bad guys. Let's just show up and just throw red crosshairs out there and have people shoot at them and have a good time, and we'll see what happens. We'll give them something to shoot at. It'll be like running a D&D session with absolutely no warning. You're just like, I don't know, orcs. Sure, there you go.
Yeah, it really was like that. Really can't stress enough just how fast-paced the whole development of it was. It was literally, we were talking about it like at one point, and then like 2 weeks later, or was it 4 weeks maybe?
It was
we were
very
running
fast.
the first event. Like, it was lightning fast, at least, you know, relative to CCP's typical speed on some things.
Yeah,
so
we usually take our time and do things the right way, and
there you go. There's
calculate the risk versus reward, and we work on tech and come out with a new feature, and then it's supported by marketing. This one, like, none of that shit happened. It was basically just, you guys, live events,
now
go.
Yeah.
And so we were thinking of who should we use? Like, who should the bad guys be for this live events? And we were thinking like, oh, is it sleepers? They're in wormholes. What's going on? Is it going to be these other pirate factions? And then we were just like, why overcomplicate it? Sancha's back. That's it. He's back with a vengeance. He's an iconic villain. He shipped with the game. He's got an engaging story that kind of left off on a cliffhanger. If you actually read the Sancha Nation chronicles that have come out, he was this big villain, infamous, had a pretty good
Empire
chance
Zone,
of taking
that's
over
cool,
New Eden, and it took everybody to group up and push his forces back, and then he mysteriously vanished, and nobody knows if he's alive or dead, and it was just, it fit every single thing we needed to do with live
When you're looking for
events.
somebody to be a common enemy, he was such a perfect fit because we already had the precedent in the storyline that the Empires had already gone out to united against him once before, so you know, it made sense. We go back there. Hopefully, the players will unite against him as well.
Yeah, he was. He's a pretty easy to hate person. He wants to assimilate everybody, make cybernetic zombies out of them, make them do his bidding. Join my nation. Even calls his people slaves. I mean, what kind of jerk does that? You know, he probably had his whole armada of ships ready to go, and he was like, you know what? I'm just not feeling the evil. Cover him in spikes. Yeah. What can we do? So anyway, that's where that idea came from, and the first events were actually 4 or 5 of us running them. Though it was Drop Bearer, myself, Big Dumb Object, Jasonitis.
That was really about it.
Hilmir, what's his dev name? I can't remember.
CCP Gingerbeard guy.
CCP Gingerbeard guy.
Yeah, the best dev name ever.
It was pretty good.
Yeah. But it was very fast and loose early on. We were sort of making it up as we go along, which was part of the beauty of it as well, because that allows us to be interactive. You know, when you don't have a static plan reaching 6 months in advance, you can be flexible. You can say, well, we just got thrown this bone by the players. Let's run with that instead.
And it worked out really well.
Yeah.
I would say that it's better than any story we could have come up with.
Exactly.
Just we just kicked it off. We just put it out there. Here was the bad guy. He was back. Here's some ships to shoot. And the players started showing up, and you guys are, when you're given the opportunity to push your own creativity forward, you guys really jumped on the opportunity, and that it just started snowballing from there. Here's the Sancha, and somebody showed up and said, oh, what's Concord doing about this? And somebody showed up and was like, woo, go Sancha! And like they would start yelling at each other, and the event would unfold, and somebody would win, somebody would lose, and inevitably, even like long after we left the battle officially, we would stick around, you know, invisible with our dev hacks, and we would just watch the people for like hours after events, like fighting over salvage and hooting and hollering at each other.
And local for like hours and hours. That sort of thing. Really
planning what they were going to do next. Like I've heard corporations are breaking up because half the people are like, Sancha's awesome, and the other half are like, I'm afraid of ships with spikes, and it was...
It catalyzed a lot of stuff, like
it did.
You could say, and that was really our aim going in. It wasn't to tell a story from on high. It was more just to throw stuff out there, breadcrumbs, I guess you could say, or shit stirring, I guess you could also say. Yeah. So we just threw stuff out there and sort of saw what players would do with it, and if they'd pick up and run with it, then there'd be a back and forth between us and that player, or that corporation, that alliance, whoever. Yeah. And there was like, I can't even remember all the points of interaction between us and players. Like, it was just crazy. There were so many things. Like, and it was really fun from our end. Like, you log in, you've got like 40 emails, and they're all just crazy different ideas about things to do. And it's like, we're just going through them, reading through them. I remember one time, I'm like, hey, at first, we've got this dude here who wants to blow up a freighter. And then I'm reading like, oh no, this is like a week-old mail. Wait a second. And then like, he's got status updates from the same guy. I'm like, oh, no, wait, he already took it to an event, apparently, and already blew it up. Whoops, okay. No worries, no worries. We'll get back in touch with that guy. We'll reimburse him his freighter and tell him to blow it up again. So then it's like, it's like minus one freighter, then plus one freighter, then, yeah, back to minus one freighter. So it'll work out. And, yeah, we just did that. And, I mean, he loved it. We created this cool little mini story arc about, you know, what happens when you blow up a freighter next to a wormhole.
What does happen when you blow up a freighter next to a wormhole?
I'm so glad you asked. What
more
happens?
Nightmares.
What I would have loved to have happened was we got this command where you can just blow up everything on the grid, and that was going to be the whole plan with this live event, right? I was sitting there waiting for him to like finish his countdown of the thing, and the self-destruct happens on the freighter, and I was there ready to make the NPCs blow up, and I typed the command, and nothing happened at all. Yeah. So I'm like frantically thinking for the next like 30 seconds.
That brings up another point, is the shoestring budget that the live events ran on. And I bring this up certainly not to slander CCP. I mean, it's the same thing we've said a lot of times now, is that this is one of the oldest online games there is. And the code that was originally written, the slash commands and the dev hacks and everything that the original Aurora live events team used, I mean, we've put out expansion after expansion since then, and code gets rewritten. If any of you have done any programming before, you know how things can just kind of get lost or commented out. And so we go to start these live events, and we're getting input from devs who had previously run them. Jay.
Yeah, been in Aurora. Yeah.
Yeah. What's Jay's dev name? I can't. Anyway, one of our QA guys is Tanis, yes, and he used to run all these, so he was giving us a lot of advice and like pointing us to the internal website. Here's where all the slash commands are. We'd go in and use them, and like 3 out of 10 of them would work, and we'd be like, okay, well, we can't do this, or this, but we can do this and this.
And we used to
so
have
the
this,
story
like,
would kind of go that way.
We used to have the above the law status as well, which was used back in the Aurora days, and it meant that any event actor could shoot at anybody else, and anybody else could shoot at the event actor. This was a pretty good system. Sometimes it just meant that the actor got completely, ganked, but sometimes it just meant that, the actor could shoot back, and it was a good little to and fro. But we didn't have that anymore. It had somehow vanished in the code in between Aurora and us starting the live events back up again. So we had to work around that, and we ended up by just setting them -10 to a, -10 security status, and then of course we had to deal with the fact that the faction police were shooting our event actors and permanently jamming them, and so they couldn't really do anything except sit there and be a piñata. But that was
if you wonder why our builds were less than optimal for damage dealing, it's because, all right, well, I'm going to be permanently locked. I'm going to have 0 cap. I can't target anything. Basically, all I can do is rig for the best passive tank possible and fit a bunch of smart bombs. Like, that was all we could put on these ships. So there were a lot of kill mails where people would take out the carriers or the super carriers, and oh, it's such a noob fitting. Like, man, that's what I had to do to survive for 15 minutes, so I could type a bunch of propaganda really fast before I blew up. But we still managed to pull off some really engaging battles. One of my favorite things that happened from the live events was the screenshots, and if you just go on to YouTube and type in, EVE Online Sancha, you'll just get really good dozens of professional quality videos that people have made, high definition. They've got music to them. Characters went in and were flying around speedy little ships, and this battle is just raging all around them, and it's really impressive. And I'll watch them, and I'll be like, I don't remember Farn looking like that. I remember just sitting there in the middle of the screen with like 300 players just wailing on me. And I'm getting 2 frames a second because there's 1,000 drones on the screen. Like, that's all I remember from it. But apparently people who had better vantage points were able to make some really, really good videos out of it.
Yeah.
And there were some screw-ups that I'm not ashamed to say. One of the early Sancha actors we have was, or one of the early Concord actors we have was Sutola Ndoma, who was the nothing to see here Concord actor. Like, a battle would happen and everybody would be all up in arms. Oh, what's Concord doing to protect us? And she'd be like, oh, nothing happened here. That's just debris from swamp gas or something. And weather balloon.
Move along.
Yeah, just nothing to see here. And everybody would get all mad and everything, and like...
They would get enraged.
Yeah,
they weren't just getting mad. They were like, I was like,
somebody committed suicide by shooting the Concord character. They were so mad, and it was like, wow, people are really angry. I think you said it is probably my best talent is aggravating players, which is sad because I thought I had some other talents there somewhere. But anyway, so everybody was so mad at this Ndoma character because, I mean, they were at the battles, and then she's all like, oh, nothing happened. That eventually we were like, all right, we got to turn her into a bad guy because this is not going to work out. This just like
we've lost her. She's irrecoverable.
Yeah, there was a protest in Uli. Like, people were mad at Concord that they thought we were screwing everything up. So I was like, the day I decided, like, all right, we're gonna turn her into a villain. She's gonna end up being a traitor or, sell out Concord or something. So I go into a live event. We're running one, and the slash commands we use to spawn villains and everything to get the bad guy, the NPCs out there, and I'm just like just typing them in, talking to Nick, and I accidentally typed a period before the slash, so instead of just going as an invisible slash command that makes 50 battleships appear, it shows up in a local as a slash command. You're like, all the arguments to it and everything.
The
And
best
I'm like,
part was the players looked at that and they're like, okay, so this. It was Sutola and Doma characters spawning the battleships.
Yeah.
And then they role played with that. They're like, Endoma's a spy. They're like bringing in the Sancha.
and we were like, yes, she is. She's totally been
That
a
was our
Sancha
moment,
sleeper
yeah.
agent this whole time.
But we had actually planned it, I think, like maybe 30 minutes before that event, or like just very, very close to the event. We were like, okay, so from now on, Indoma should carry around true slave stuff in a cargo hold, just in case somebody blows her up, and all this sort of incriminating evidence. And it just so happened that he screws up in local, and then they run with that, and then like, that was how a lot of events ran, you know, a lot of fortuitous circumstances, and us getting away very luckily from some disasters.
We were able to weave the mistakes back into the plot pretty effectively.
We hope so anyways.
There were a few events, like, as we said, the above the law status didn't always work perfectly. So if you were at some events and it seemed like, man, we're never going to take out the super carrier, and then Concord shows up and pops them in one hit, that's because the above the law flag wasn't working properly. So
yeah. And there was other events maybe you saw sometimes when we learned not to repeat this mistake very quickly, but if you sat in Lowsec with 1,000,000,001 battleships around you and hit your smart bombs, they would aggress you. So we had a few moments where the Sancha were shooting themselves. Yeah. There was like a little civil war happening. Yeah, it's like, oh no, somebody hacked into the Sancha and made them shoot at our own ships.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah. So a lot of role-playing on our feet, I guess you could say.
Yeah, but those were very early mistakes, and we were able to whittle it down. What works, what doesn't, like what system should we avoid. I mean, it's no mistake that we ended up running most of the live events in highsec, not only because that was where the best turnout was in terms of population, but also because that's where we had the least chance of just weird security status things going against us. I showed up to one event.
Sorry, go on.
I showed up to one event, and it was in Lowsec, and I'm thinking, all right, I'll get some pirates, I'll get some normal players out here, and we'll see what happens. And I got attacked by 18 dreadnoughts and a Titan. I think it was. I was like, my ship is sitting there, and all these ships are swarming around me. I'm like, oh, look at these cruisers and stuff. Oh, those are dreadnoughts going around me like a swarm of drones. This boom ship shows up bigger than mine. I'm like, I'm supposed to have the biggest ship on the field, damn it. And I was in a developer ship at that point. I think I was in the dev version of the Revenant called the Nation, which was designed to just keep us alive so we can role play before we're dead. And they were like, "You're not role playing. You're in pirate territory now." Like, yeah. So that event was over pretty quickly.
I was going to say we didn't initially plan to do Lowsec events. It was based on player feedback that we actually went out there, and we're really glad we did. We're really glad we got that feedback, and we're really glad we acted on it because Lowsec events were really fantastic at catalyzing. For want of a better word, clusterfucks. It was really, it was like you'd have the pirates in there, you'd have, if you went to, and we love to do this, we'd go to faction warfare space, and you'd have the Caldari militia come in, and then the Glenty militia come in, and neither side cares about the Sancha, they're just there because both sides are there, and so they're just fighting it out between themselves.
And every once in a while, 100 nightmares just go boom,
and just kill somebody on one side of the fleet or another. And then you've got the people who want to kill the Sancha coming in, and then you've got pirates trying to kill the people who are trying to kill the Sancha or trying to kill the
everybody.
People. Yeah, it's just...
It was pretty chaotic. There were a lot of times where we felt outstaged. I'm like, I just spawned 200 battleships. This is going to be, why is everybody fighting over there? What's going on?
Exactly.
It looks really fun. I'm just hanging out in a cloud of NPCs like a jerk.
Yeah.
Right?
You've got to do it that way sometimes. But then you could always just spawn a new wormhole on top of the guys who weren't paying attention to you, and when they start to pay attention.
So the best part of the live events was definitely the feedback from the players, like
and the level of interactivity. I'd say.
Yeah, like 90% of live events, like where the storyline went, is because of the players and the record keeping. My God, don't people have day jobs? Like the forum posts and the maps of like everything, and how many people were inducted from everywhere. Yeah. There were a lot of times when like Scott, our boss, would be like, all right, well, what's the update on the live events? What's going on? And we'd be like, I don't know. Go check that guy's forum post.
Yeah, exactly.
for where we've hidden everything. he's really accurate.
Yeah, like this guy, like he just eliminated the need for us to do documentation. Duranable Copia, I think his name was, and he just every week he'd put up these new map. And
yeah, and then
amazing.
The people who organized the pro and the anti-Sancha teams, like I can't give enough props to those guys. He's gathered everybody together and said, all right, we're getting together and we're going to kill the Sancha. And there was a good number of players that got together and were like, I want to be a true slave, and became the
and
Friends
we gave
of
them
Nation.
just the sort of the tiniest little bit of encouragement. We set up a channel for them.
Yeah.
Got a few guys in there, and then from there they just sort of ran with it.
Right.
And then another event we did, which was fun, was we had two true slave guys just go around all the market hubs and spam in local, join the nation, blah, 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 send a mail to Sancha Kuvakai, and he'll tell you what to do next. And so, by the way, answering all those mails to Kuvakai was a total bitch.
Yeah.
Like, there was like 800 of them. But we got there in the end. And Sancha tells them all, I just made a forum thread, come and declare your allegiance. And one of the points behind that was just, it's like a recruitment thread for all the Sancha guys, right? They can just go through and, oh, this guy's Sancha, and this guy's Sancha. So, yeah, it's more about catalyzing, trying to get players to build on their own things. And every single time the players ran with it. Like,
Yeah.
ran with it sometimes way further than we expected. And
Yeah, it was like a fight club, We just kicked off this little thing, like, here's the Sancha. And every time we log in, it'd be like, there's a lot more of you last time. Somebody's breaking the first rule of Sancha Club. Telling their friends.
I'll tell one story, actually, which will show just the sort of level of influence players had over the storyline. And that was when we were setting up the live events, like when we were just beginning them at the very beginning, we needed a place to set up in. And obviously we're spawning empty ships and doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and testing fittings and all that sort of stuff. So we can't do it anywhere on a real region. We have to do it on TQ because we need those assets on TQ to use them. So we just set up in Jove space. It seemed like a good idea, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And sure enough, somebody locates us in Jove space, and then for about a month, couple of weeks, we're like, oh yeah, that's right, we're in Jove space, and they can see that. And we didn't quite know what to do with it, but eventually we sort of decided,
why not?
Maybe we should run with this. Maybe the players are onto something here. And yeah, we got some assets ready. We got a screenshot, which you guys might have seen, a big Sancha fleet sitting in front of a Jovian station, and it was sort of just a bit vague about what exactly was going on there. And we had that just sitting, ready and waiting. And we were running an event one night. There may have been a 6-pack of beer involved or something like that. And I probably shouldn't have said that. And we're sitting there, and this explorer, well-known explorer, Mouse now, is a sort of a, not a hardcore role player, but a unknown role player, is talking about sending camera drones through the wormholes. And we're like, well, that's funny. We've got this screenshot ready. Yeah. So we email Mouse Nell with a link to the picture which we just put up on e-files. And in that moment, you're always you're terrified because you don't know what the player is exactly going to do with that information, right? Like, are they just going to sit on it? Are they going to run with it? Are they going to even be interested in role-playing with it? But it was beautiful. Mouse Nell in local with like 500 people is like, well, guys, I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is I got a great picture. This turned out really well. And the bad news is, of course, that there's Sancha in Jove space. But
Speaking
it was
of which,
an entirely play-driven thing. Well, not entirely, but it was a real big back and forth thing between us.
I feel like I should defend your statement on one night with a 6-pack of beer. Is that as people got allocated to other projects, Jason had to go work on Dust, and Chris got promoted, so he was suddenly too busy to help out with everything. It eventually whittled down to just Nick and I running the majority of the events. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Eve has this like one server thing going on, which means you guys are scattered all across the goddamn globe. So when we want to run live events, we can't just do them 9 to 5 Eastern Standard Time in the States. We had nights and weekends and weird hours, and Nick's online at 3 in the morning, and I'm coming into work at 6 in the morning trying to run them just so we can make sure we spread them out and hit everybody.
It was great, though. If you couldn't get to sleep that night, it's like, oh, go in, invade a couple of systems.
Go blow up some drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It's good fun. So, we're at about, what are we, 20 minutes in? Is that what it says? Do we want to...
I don't know if that's accurate. Is that accurate?
Oh, what time is it, somebody? 25 past, yeah, okay. We might just open it to Q&A now.
I want to tell my favorite story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, tell your favorite story.
And then I want you to tell the Mwat story, because that's catalyzing human interaction.
Yes.
Maximizing
human interaction
in a fearless, excellent,
unified,
sort of
transparent
way. We get little perks in our paycheck every time we mention one of the CCP catchphrases.
He just got promoted twice, in fact. In that.
Yeah, I'm actually in charge now. So, my favorite event, or a little happenstance, where the story took a direct turn as the direct result of player intervention is. So we start doing these live events, and we have specific accounts on Tranquility that have the privileges and everything. I mean, this is right when the events are taking off; they're becoming popular, and we're like, man, let's do this. Let's make some more accounts. So I'm just like slave whatever, slave this, just making which would eventually become the iconic Sancha villains. And I'm right about to type in the next one, and from across the office, Dropbear's like, hey, I got an email from this dude who says, or it was the forums or something, like, hey, he's saying his family was abducted off of one of the planets, and he's all fired up because he's a role player. And I'm like, sweet, what's his last name? Like, let's name one of the slaves after him and say that it's his daughter, son, wife thing, all genetically smashed together.
Researching this guy's family history so we can turn him into a Sancha slave, basically.
So that was where Slave Heavenbound came from, was just that offhanded role player who said that his family was missing, and I'm like, we're gonna fuck with this guy. And so we go in. I remember it was the very next or very soon after, I come in, the music's playing, bah, bah, here's the super carrier, and it's Slave Heavenbound, and this guy was, he was in every event, I remember all the time, and he shows up and he's like, wait, what? Heavenbound? What's going on? And the character immediately recognizes him and just starts shrieking at him, about why'd you abandon us and all this, pulling the cybernetic zombie guilt trip. And it wasn't just role playing either. Every time he would show up to an event, I would just be like, 100 battleships, 100 battleships, 100 battleships. She would get mad, and the shit would hit the fan, and people would just start losing ships, and they would get outnumbered and everything. Yeah, he's right.
It got to the point where they'd be like, dude, just stay away from her. Don't piss her off again, please.
Yeah, don't show up. Don't talk to her. Just stay off grid, and she won't freak out. And it was a really interesting thing. I had a lot of fun with it, because that was when, you guys are all out there playing Eve, killing hulks or mining or whatever it is you do, and we as developers are like, it's time for a live event, so we just kind of spring it on you. And that was a great opportunity to turn the tables, where I'm like, it's a live event, I'm doing my thing, everything's right. And then he would show up like, I'm springing it on you, I'm here. And then we'd be like, oh, now we've got to change it. So that was that back and forth that we so loved about the live events. Mm-hmm. But another one of my favorite stories is the Mort event. Yeah,
you guys, some of you might have heard of Mort, the Mort event. Basically, how that all kicked off is we're sitting around in Lowsec just doing another event one day, and I'm on a Concord guy getting shot at by some pirates in Lowsec. So it's Lowsec, I can respond, I got shot at. And, the intention is never to kill these guys, it's just, take them down, scare them off. But I'm there typing in local, like, hey, you, back down. All right, this is Concord, blah, blah, blah. Oh, shit, I just blew him up. Okay. Okay, and there's probably going to be a petition about that. And yeah, sure enough, there's a petition about that because, I couldn't be jammed in my Concord ship and blah, blah, blah. So we decide to roleplay the petition. We decide to handle it purely in character. So he gets a mail from Kuvakai himself saying, I saw that you were taken down by one of those Concord dogs, and, I've got your ship all replaced. You just come and meet me in Mort. Actually, he asks the player where to meet him. So this guy, J-Doc, he says, well, come and meet me in Mort. That's where I hang with all my old brosefs. He was an awesome role player, this guy. And to his credit, he ran with it, actually. He ran with it beautifully. So he warps to this safe spot, and wormhole opens, and there's Kuvakai and a Titan ejecting his ship. Pretty cool moment for this guy. And he hops in it, and he sends back another petition saying, we love how this was handled. This is really cool. I never expected this. This is a very CCP way of handling it. And we thought, okay, cool, situation resolved. Blah, blah, blah.
Tied off.
Yeah. Tied off nicely. And then fucking locator agents again. So People are
take
like,
those out of the game already. What are we doing?
so somebody was like, what's Sancha doing in Mort? What's Sancha doing in Mort? And then all the Sancha role players, they jump on top of this idea and they're like, oh yeah, Sancha's up to stuff in Mort. Yeah, come to Mort. That's, going to be big stuff there. And like a week later, there was the Tyrannus expansion, I think it was. And we're putting that out, and the Sancha guys convinced the rest of the player base that there's going to be some huge content-adding event, with Kuvikai and a Titan in Mord, and, everybody should be there. And, of course, everybody does show up, and we have no idea that this is going on. And there's this huge battle, like 800 people and 900 people, and, like, the node eventually dies in Mord right before the expansion downtime or something like that. And all because Sancha guys did some misinformation based on a guy who did a petition because I probably shouldn't have killed him, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So it's just this, like, it's the butterfly effect. It's the real deal butterfly effect. Like, you start off with this tiny little thing, and then it causes this, and then it sort of goes back and forth. It's a pretty amazing thing to wake up on the Monday morning and people are like, what kind of event were you running in Mort? Yeah. Like, seriously, you didn't get the node reinforced?
Like, what the fuck, dude? What are you doing?
I'm like, I have no idea what happened in Mort. Like,
it's pretty epic.
And even they thought we'd been running an event. They're like, but you had Kuvikai there and a Titan and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? Did we? Wait, head first? No? Okay. So, yeah, really cool story. Do we want to...
Let's answer some questions now. We could just ramble forever about how much fun this was.
Never end. Rock?
Love you, man. Quick question. I was at Dr. East's thing. He was talking about, we need more syncs for ISK, et cetera, et cetera. Has it been on the table lately for you guys to talk about developing a player tool for creating live events that we can drop ISK into?
So the question is developing a player tool for live events that they can drop ISK into. We honestly haven't given that any thought. It's a good idea. The idea of player-driven events, player-created missions, similar sort of ideas, and we have sort of talked about player-created missions. I guess that is sort of actually very similar. That kind of thing, I think, has a lot of potential. Giving players tools to create their own stories is always just more cost-effective because they're a much better, much more numerous content creation resource than we are. So.
And, well, I mean, technically there's nothing stopping you from doing that in EVE whenever and wherever you like. Just
For sure. I guess the example I'm going to go back to is I used to play another game that had a great system for that, and eventually you could hire your own NPC actors. You would provide your own loot for them. You could script very minimal things, and it just, for role players especially, it added that extra level of immersion.
Right.
Now, of course, on my own I get stuff organized, and like you said, there's the butterfly effect. That's a lot of fun, but we don't have that starting kick.
Right.
So it does add that extra level of interest, and it wasn't cheap to do as a player, so it would be a great way to lose a lot of ISK.
Well, when we go back to live events in the future, I think that was something that really got hammered home to us was, just for this tiny little bit of effort, a little bit of acknowledgement can kickstart a whole thing. So in the future, I think we're going to try and be more accommodating to a broader range of things. So instead of it just being like admittedly, we were predominantly focused on the Sancha storyline for this. And by virtue of that, the Sancha-related role players. So if you're an Angel Cartel guy or you're a Garistas guy, I know there's some Veto here, and the Veto guys tried to get involved, but it was a difficult thing to focus on them. So in future live events, it's something that we'd want to sort of be more broad, be able to incorporate this faction and that faction, and this theme and this ideology, and so on. And yeah, I don't know if that exactly answered your question, but we got... Okay.
Close enough.
The tail system, yeah. Right.
Oh, that's an incredibly powerful tool. If they put that in our hot little hands for live events. The one thing that we found out late in the game for live events that we can do is we could spawn mission content, like what we call dungeons or rooms or whatever they are. We can spawn that. The only problem is that it takes time and planning to make those, which we didn't have. So despite the tool being active, they weren't available to us. Whereas if the tail system becomes available for live events and we have the advanced warning to get our level designers and the other writers on it to make that content, absolutely we would use that. That would be fantastic. I mean, imagine a situation like with the Sancha events. Wormhole pops open, a bunch of bad guys come out, there's a true slave there talking a bunch of smack. you beat all of that stuff, and then it's like, hey, for those of you who are daring, follow us back through the wormhole, and there's a Sancha base on the other side where all these guys came from. And
so
you
basically,
go through.
underneath the surface, what the system is doing is it's tracking progress. It's reacting to what players do, and it's not us manually doing it like we have been for the previous live events, but it's an automated system, but still a fairly flexible and sophisticated one. I mean, it's not sitting there ready for us to use, and we can just use it tomorrow. We'd still have to get a whole lot of programming work done on it, because it was, as we got closer to incursions, they slimmed the tool down just to be purpose-driven for this particular thing, but it's built in a very modular way. So if we do, when we do get a chance to sort of go back and revisit it, we can add live event-specific tools in there. Like, take, for example, using gravimetric ECM on wormholes. That was just something that we were manually sort of role-playing in local. These guys are jamming the wormhole. Okay, maybe we should despawn it now, that sort of thing. If we had the support from a couple of programmers and support in the tail system, we could make that an actual objective with a hard parameter set, so that there's a very clear-cut win or lose condition. So there's no dubiousness or this event was scripted or blah blah blah, anything like that. We don't script events, by the way. Glad I managed to remember to say that. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, during the larger live events, when you announced like dropping drop ships on the planet, role-playing corps like target drop ships so they can't pick anything up. But of course, there's nothing there to shoot.
Right.
That irritated a lot of role players that
Yeah.
there was absolutely nothing.
Well, I'll tell you about that.
Like the gravimetric thing, that was something that we just sort of played off dynamically.
And it wasn't even something we planned to do originally. The first events, there weren't even any abductions. It was just sort of like, hey, why don't we abduct people?
Yeah.
Like, why don't we go to temperate planets and abduct
what are we
people?
doing here? Like, we chose temperate planets originally because, we ran a couple of tests, like, hey, do the slash commands work? Let's spawn bad guys. And we're like, we're in deep space again. Eve is beautiful if you're in the right spot, but if you're just in the middle of nowhere in space, it can get kind of redundant. Like, there's not a lot of scenery changes. So we were like, let's use these planets for something other than resources. Let's,
Beautiful backdrop.
Yeah, go right there, and it's going to make the screenshots look great. And then I feel like the first couple, we ran it like all kinds of different planets, and then you're outside of so many gas planets, and you're like, oh, this guy again, huh? Big yellow ball. All right, let's go to the temperate worlds because they're the most interesting looking. And then we're like, all right, well, we're at these colonized places all the time. Let's abduct the shit out of some people. Let's go.
So it wasn't anything we went in there with a whole lot of planning on. And as we said at the start of the presentation, we didn't have a whole lot of time. But as we just said just now, also when we go back into the next events, we're going to have more time to plan things. And if we're lucky, we get to work with a tail system, we can turn those sort of scenarios into something that has a clear-cut win and lose condition. Is something tangible in space that you can shoot at, and so on and so forth. For the first event, yeah, you're right. We were stuck role-playing things that players couldn't really affect except by role-playing back, and it was a bit wishy-washy about, who role-played better or who role-played harder or something like that, So it's kind of hard to do, and we sort of dug ourselves a hole with that one a little bit. Like, we'll admit that, but I mean, lesson learned, and it's obviously a point to improve on in the future. Very clearly.
Got to start targeting the role players first. I'm shooting the dropships. No, you're not. You get out of here in your pod.
So, yep.
Can you guys ballpark a date for the kickoff of the next series of live events?
A ballpark for the date of the launch of the next live events. We can't really.
We can't really because both of us have actually been reallocated to the Incarna team. He's writing a bunch of stuff for the new player experience, and I'm doing level design for the captain's quarters and the establishments. So we're kind of busy.
Yeah, it's on its way though, and right now we're sort of wrangling resources, talking to people, getting initial plans out there. Like, work's already begun on it now and weeks ago, but publicly it probably won't kick off for at least a couple of months.
Yeah.
At least a couple of months, I'd say, just to be safe. But also sort of toying with the idea of, a more low-key launch this time instead of, sirens blazing and big show entrance, something that's a bit more hidden, a bit more apocryphal, perhaps.
Apocryphal.
See what I did there?
Jerk. Ooh. What?
First of all, I want to just say thank you for livening up the RP scene because I'm those infamous.
You are welcome, sir.
And it sparked a lot of personal RP for me because I've loved Nito and Arista, but because it's just sitting on their hands about what Sancha sparked. I'll return to the Angel card. We'll get flying Muriel again. But would there be any possibility of seeing the actual pirate factions? Because there's a lot of history between Angel and Sancha. Just one of the dominations going like, hey, fuck you.
Yep.
Publicly on forum. It would be nice to see some reactions. Like, their own guy, man from Kumar
Well, the reason why during this one we didn't really branch out into the other factions is because we were only really initially given the mandate. The plan we presented initially was, it's going to be a Sancha invasion, there's going to be some Concord guys involved, blah, blah, blah. And when we started introducing other elements, like the Jove thing, for example, there was some concern that, it was just all sort of, you're in your first event, it's started off as a Sancha, now it's about the Jove. They were sort of worried that it was, just spiraling out into it. It's about everything and everyone, and, there was some concern. So, as I say, next time around, we want to do it more broadly, I think, so that we can be more flexible about who to include and who we can focus on. There was a couple of Serpentis and some Blood Raiders kicking around, and we did try to sort of ramp it up a little by the end, but once again, we were sort of limited by what had been approved.
It was just a little bit of role-playing, and plus we didn't have the means or the authority of going in and tinkering how factions view each other and saying, all right, well, these guys were allies, but now here comes Sancha, so I'm going to make the Blood Raiders hate them suddenly or something. We didn't have the authority to do that, so anything we could do is just sort of role-playing fluff of people being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
How are we doing on time? 22? Probably, yeah, we should, we'll probably wrap it up say 15 minutes early just so you guys can get to CCP Presents. So probably just take one more question maybe.
Who's got a really good question? This guy's been wanting to ask a question for a while in front here.
Big thanks for the events. I've sort of been trying to get roleplay started within my group of players for a while. And it got to the point where, because at the time we recently couped our alliance, we actually pledged our whole alliance for Sancha. We had 240 people going, what? We're all going to be slaves? Which was just great to see. But I know obviously you explained you had some limitations with the tools at the time. So at first people showing up kept saying, stay away from the Sancha, we can't control them.
Yeah.
Is that something you're looking at for future events?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
We've sat down and had some meetings with programmers and stuff like that, and it's been really instructive actually running this first bunch of events. Things sit there and annoy you like that. I want just for the people in the stream, the question was, are we getting more tools to sort of make it a bit more flexible so that Sancha NPCs don't shoot friends of the Sancha? It'd
be nice if they didn't shoot us.
It'd be nice if they didn't shoot us too when we're in the same corporation. Yeah. Definitely. There's a whole bunch of things similar to those sort of irky little mechanics.
Yeah, we have a growing wish list of a prioritized list of, man, if we're going to do these again, here's what we need, and some of it is pretty simple bug fixes, and some of it is incorporating the tail system and everything. Some of it is pretty meaty stuff that maybe we'll get, maybe we won't in time for the next events.
Second part to that, where you had players who get responses from Sancha from saying, go over here, spread the word. Is there any way in game to sort of add a prefix or a suffix to the character's name?
So is there any way in game to add a sort of special, this guy is a
Title or
special
Or a link in their bio.
favored by the gods sort of thing?
See they are actually working for it and not just pretending to role play.
Right.
A lot of people not taking you seriously when you role play. So if you've got something in your title, your name, your bio, wherever, people will sort of respect it.
That's
a really good idea.
In Eve, reputation is currency, right?
Yeah.
So it's something you got to be careful with. You don't want to something we probably weren't as careful with as we should have been. And you don't want to prop up just one person or one group too much because, as I say, reputation is currency. And like Juliana Soter, for example, became sort of very prominent. And so as the events went on, we sort of had to back off from him. And it's like, okay, he's got his own little thing running now. Like we should look out for more people to involve. It was the same with the Sancha. Like we propped up a few guys and then wanted to get more guys involved. But so as far as doing some sort of official in-game mechanic or some sort of notification that this guy has, you know, the approval of the Sancha, it's certainly something that we could investigate. But again, something we also have to be careful with.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, we're going to let you get out of here a little bit early so you can get to the big show.